Hello, it's the next morning.
Ready? Rolling.
And I don't know if you can tell by my voice, I'm still not sounding great, I'm still not feeling great. I only got about 3 hours of sleep last night, but I do have an update. I have an update, which is great news. So there are 2 ways that I log my albums, and the more I listen to my voice, wow, is it really that gone, or is my ears really that screwed up? Because my ears are still, this one's really ringing. This one, you know, like when you like grab your nose and blow to try to pop your eardrums, this one is like not popping, like whatsoever. And when I swallow like a drink, you might as well call me a Rice Krispies treat, because it's just snap, crackle, pop, like in my ear. So I think I'm gonna drop some alcohol in there and stuff a cotton ball and let it do its thing. There are 2 ways that I log my albums, and I discovered some good news this morning. So I logged them in here, first of all, and I also logged them in my Notion. So I was looking at my Notion page, and I realized that my Notion page said that I was on a different number album than this said I was, because they're both numbered. And I went through and I started counting to try and be like, okay, because the Notion had more than this one. So I was like, okay, is something like double entered? Did I accidentally enter something from, is something from 2022 somehow on here when I was, going through my pages? No, they were all albums that I listened to in 2023. I had just forgotten to add them in here, probably because, like I just said, I didn't have this with me whenever I entered it into the Notion. There was a difference of 6. My Notion said that I had 119. This is plus the 5 albums that I listened, or the 4 albums that I listened to this morning that I've already listened to. And it's just now 11 a.m. So I've been busy. This said I had listened to 113. And so I said, okay, there's 6 difference. And I found those 6, and it sure was correct that I just hadn't entered them in here. So I put them in here, and we were up to 119. So I was actually 6 albums ahead of where I thought I was when I originally started this challenge. So what that means is I have bought myself an extra day, and I think I'm gonna take it tomorrow. Like I said, I already listened to the 4 albums that I wanted to listen to this morning, and I'm gonna finish listening to a 5th, just because I'm already so close. I'm gonna finish out the day strong, I think. I can't remember. I did not get much sleep last night. Hold on. Okay, so I just doubly checked, and I lied to you. It wasn't 4 albums I listened to this morning. It wasn't 5. It was 3. But anyway, I've already listened to 3 this morning, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and listen to 2 more just so I can count today. But gonna take tomorrow off. That way I can let my sinuses hopefully clear up, my ears clear up so I can hear albums better. But I'm getting behind in talking to you about the albums that I've listened to since I last spoke with you. So don't expect a running soliloquy, which is a good thing, about all these albums like there has been. I just want to get through them. I want to talk to you about them. So first up on the list, where is my list? Where's my little piece of paper? There it is. Okay, so since I last saw you, I have listened to like 13 albums that I haven't yet talked about. Midtown, Forget What You Know. This was the album that came recommended by one of my favorite guitarists. Did not disappoint. Really, really good. Just really solid, but yet surprising rock album. The last song was a little bit much for me because it's 13 minutes long and 6 minutes of it is the same thing over and over and over and over and over. I get what they're trying to do, especially it fits the theme of the lyrics, but for me, in my ADHD brain, I was like, this is not it, fam. But the rest of the album, beautiful. Beautiful lyrics, beautiful guitars especially. Oh my goodness, the guitars. My favorite song from the albums my favorite songs from the album is Nothing Is Ever What It Seems and Give It Up. Those are my 2 favorites right off the top of my head, because it's interesting. Whenever I'm listening to the album, I think I have different favorites, but as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I kind of like to be a little bit stepped away from after I've listened to the album rather than give you my immediate first impressions, because I think it's what sticks with me after that time is what I really kind of want to deliver to you, because it's clearly what stuck out to me. And it's interesting the difference in the songs that when I'm listening to the album for the first time, I'm like, ooh, this is my favorite, versus the songs I actually think about once I'm a little bit stepped away from it. So those are the songs that you're getting. That being said, there are songs that when I listen to the album again, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, I love this song, or I love this song more than that one, but I feel like I want to deliver to you the things that stuck out to me the most, stepping a little bit away. Really great recommendation. I can see myself coming back to this album. Yeah, it's a good vibe. It's a good rock vibe album with just enough angst and just enough rock. with the lyrical themes in some of these albums that you're going to see, some of these lyrical themes, I don't put such an emphasis on them because songwriting comes from the person's own mind. I was going to say own experiences, but not everyone writes about their own experiences. But there are just some artists or some albums or some songs that I just can't fully find myself in because I can't relate to the lyrics, so I don't love them as much, or I don't have an attachment as much to them as I do with songs that I kind of can see myself in, or if it's just a story that's told really well. So that being said, that's why I don't like listen to a bunch of hip-hop or a bunch of like party music, like party rock, except for Party Rockin'. Party Rock Anthem. It's freaking bop. But songs that are like a lot about partying or drinking or that kind of, you know, lifestyle in any genre, I can't really relate to it because I don't drink and I don't like parties. So, that being said though, I do listen to them, it's just that's not the kind of song or lyrics that I usually gravitate towards, except Coming in Hot by Hollywood Undead does make the feminism leave my body. So, pretty much any song by Hollywood Undead makes the feminism leave my body. Can you tell I'm tired, dude? I'm tired, dude. And I tell you that rant because it pretty much has a little bit to do with my thoughts on this album, but not that much. But it will be coming up. It will be coming up. So I just wanted to get it out there in my train of thought. But Out Loud by True North. Solid album. Really angsty. I can tell it's a new kind of metalcore pop punk vibes. I can tell it's new school-esque, but it doesn't overshadow its effect. It takes a lot of the good things you can recognize about new school pop punk metalcore-esque music and combines them with kind of an older feel that really makes it its own. It's hard to describe, but I think if you listen to it, you'll get what I'm saying. Because the way that the lyrics are formulated around the music and the subject matter kind of reminds me of newer school stuff, which is, you know, it's fine, whatever, which is cool, but the old school-esque things are the overall vibe and the way it comes together, and I think it blends it really well. Stalemate. I really like that song. I also like the song Gasoline. Again, overall, pretty solid album. So if you're looking for a well-done, angsty, moody, dark album, this would be your vibe. Oh my gosh, how did I skip over The Best Part About Being Human by Bearings? Oh my god, okay. This was the album that I predicted was going to be 5 stars for me, and it was not just 5 stars, it was a big old, as I predicted, or as I had hoped, and I freaking love this album. I do love this album, and I want to get it on vinyl, I want to get it on cassette, I want to get it on CD. I love this album. But if you want a really, really freaking solid pop-punk album with some hard-hitting bass, one of the most beautiful drum sounds I've ever heard in my life, listen to this album. The songs are catchy as hell, they are feelsy, but yet they are just like dancing around your room, fun, feelsy-esque. I think, in a way around, it fully captures the best part about being human, is having these feels, but also being able to have a lot of fun and dance around, but also you're kind of sad sometimes, you know? But also there are a lot of good things in life, which then can sometimes turn around and make you sad, but there are a lot of good times too, and love is here. We love love. So, one of my favorite songs is Howie You're a Freak. For various reasons, but also just the name, because I was listening to it, I wasn't looking at my phone, I was listening to it, and I was like, oh, sick, and I look over, and I see the title, and I started laughing. The synesthesia that I'm getting from this album overall is an ice cream cone, vanilla ice cream, and you know when, like, if you're holding the ice cream cone with vanilla ice cream on it, like, close to your face, you know, when you get that fresh ice cream, that, like, the first scoop before you've even taken a bite of it. Am I the only one that bites ice cream? Before you start eating the ice cream, however you may consume your frozen dairy, when you're holding that ice cream cone up to your face, and you know that chill that you feel coming off of the ice cream, like you can feel like the cold from where it's come out of the freezer, that's the synesthesia that I'm getting from this album, is the vanilla ice cream cone, and specifically like the chill coming off of it that's not freezing cold, but it's a chill and it's still like light and you can smell the vanilla. That's it. Bearings, let me know what you think. Tear Me to Pieces, Story of the Year. Another very, very solid rock, pop, punk, metal, core album. Genres are stupid. But this album is not. This album is a lot of fun. My favorite songs are, I really like 2005, made me very nostalgic and feelsy. What was the other ones? Oh, Afterglow and Take the Ride. Afterglow and Take the Ride, again, feelsy, but in a way that it made me want to be proactive about my life. Like, Take the Ride 2005, especially. Upbeat and yet full of angst and frustration album. Very much the I hate my hometown kind of vibe that punk is known for, but mixed with a lot of I'm gonna do something about it. And I may be sad while I'm doing it, but gosh darn it, I'm gonna do something about it. You know? It's a great album. Great sounds. Recommend it. Elsewhere by Set It Off. Simply put, this album was as much fun as their show was. I went in not really knowing what I was getting into except for having seen them at their show. I got what I got at their show. It was just a really good overall, very, very vibey, fun time. This may be the album with the most catchy songs that I've listened to in this challenge, at least. All the songs are super catchy, especially Loose Cannon. Loose Cannon lives in my head rent-free. I think it's finally out of my earworm, and then it's just, Loose Cannon, and I'm like, okay. Alright. What I will say about Elsewhere is a lot of the songs remind me of 2013 YouTube vibes. Let's put it that way. A lot of them remind me of 2013 kind of YouTube vibes, and that's not a diss. That's a compliment because it's its own unique niche feeling. That being said, and I don't mean this to sound like a criticism, it's just my observation because I do really like the album overall. I feel like the latter half of this album is much deeper compared to the beginning of it, the first half. The first half feels just a little bit more superficial compared to the latter half. And what I mean by that is you listen to songs like Loose Cannon or Projector and it's just like, you know, shut up, people are stupid, I don't like you, blah blah blah. That's fine. Those are fun, like, jam, catchy songs, like Summer Drive in the car, dancing with your friends. Awesome. I love that kind of stuff. But then you get to the final track on this album called Better Than This, and it's like, I am in love, I'm in this relationship, but this person deserves better treatment, and they deserve to be loved better than I'm loving them right now, and I want to give them that, and it's very raw and just, like, at the heartstrings, and you're like, damn! Like, compared to shut up, you're a projector, shut up, I'm like, when did we do this turnaround? Like, I love it, you know? Like, there's nothing wrong with having both those sides on an album, and I think it's a compliment that having both those sides can work on an album like that, which they absolutely do, but it's just, it's interesting. It's interesting. I would say my favorite songs on this album are Why Not Me and Better Than This. If you couldn't tell, I really, really like that song. It's good. Next album that I listened to was Superliminal by Locket. This was an album because I saw at the bottom of the playlist on my recommended songs to add, there was a song on this album, and so I just went to the songs album and added the entire album because why not? I know nothing about this band. I have never heard of them before, but they're really, really good. You should go check them out because this album, I would say the synesthesia that I was getting from this album is very imbibed in the album cover, which there's a picture of somewhere in this video, probably above the Jesus looking window. I'm sorry, the blinds are closed. I just don't have a curtain because I don't. But this is the synesthesia that I'm getting from this album, which is interesting to say because a lot of the guitar sounds are dark, but it's not dark in like a death metal way. This album, I think, is a band who is comfortable with their sound, comfortable with their vibe and what they want to put out there. This album could take you to being in a pit in a small venue, to rocking out with your friends, just hanging out at home, blasting the song on the stereo, to just walking down a city street, just feeling yourself, just absolutely ready to take on the world, and also sitting in your room at night alone with a guitar. This album takes a lot of different directions in those kind of vibes, yet still maintains this driving, rocking, crisp, I'm getting gravel in my head vibe. I'd say one of my favorite songs is Blame My Brain, but there's two more that I can't think of the name of off the top of my head. I can't remember which two they are. I'll go back and listen and list them here, but yeah. Overall, I will be checking out more of their discography. I started following them on Spotify because they are really good, and I'm glad I took a chance. We need to go faster on this. This is 20 minutes. Holy God. Okay. Time Erasure by I Met a Yeti. This is one that immediately I will have to go back and listen to because there's just so much going on and my ears are so stopped up that I couldn't really hear it as well as I'd want to. But the song I think I like the best is probably Danger Chupacabra. Overall though, really great, really fun EP. It was an EP, but really great, really fun. Just a lot going on, and I want to go back and take my time listening to it because I don't feel like I was able to hear it enough to give it justice to tell you what I think. But I do know that I liked it. What I could hear, I really enjoyed it, and I obviously enjoyed it enough to go back and listen to it. Otherwise, I'd just tell you too bad, so sad. Alright people, are you ready? I listened to Rush, Are You Coming by Måneskin. Yes, I know. I'm very late. I've never heard an album by this band before. I've made sure I said that sentence correctly. I've never heard an album by this band. I've never heard anything by this band except for their VMAs performance, and I really, really liked it. Everyone's been telling me that I will love them. Everyone's been telling me to get into them. Julie, I'm looking at you. Julie especially, her Italian roots is like violently Italian, you know, Italians. Thought I heard a noise. Very good at hearing noises, even when I'm sick. Hello? Anyway, Julie's been trying to get me to listen to them for a long time, and it's funny, because after I listened to the album, I texted her, and I was like, guess what? I'm a fan. And she's like, it's about friggin' time. It's a long time coming. And she's absolutely right. This is one of my top albums of the year. Like, that I've listened to this year. Oh my god. Oh my god. First of all, violently Italian, but in the best way. In the best way. Called it, Spaghetti, Drugs, and Rock and Roll. Probably one of the most rock and roll albums that I've listened to this year. Like, it just is rock and roll. If you can't find really any newer bands that embody that kind of classic rock feel you may have grown up with, like you think Greta Van Fleet is what I almost said. If you're not really into Greta Van Fleet, but even if you are, I would encourage you to check out this band. Because they give a lot of that good, punchy, classic rock feel with a new twist. Like, it's new and you can tell it's full of breath and full of life, but it almost doesn't give you room to breathe in a good way because you're just being taken this direction and that, and it's a fun ride the entire time. It's very punk rock in the I don't give a fuck element. We're here to have fun, we're having fun, don't take life so seriously. But then they can turn around and put out a song like Time Zone, which, first of all, I'm in an LDR, so that hit real hard. My favorite songs on this album were The Driver, On My Mind, and Time Zones. I don't know how I just friggin' forgot Time Zone. I love all three of those songs. I love this entire album. I'm actually probably gonna go to iTunes and buy it if I can't just get a CD at my local record shop. That way I can listen to it a lot more on my phone. But my gosh, the bass, the guitar, every single instrument is so well played and so represented. There's not one thing that takes precedent over the other, but the vocal talent on this album, just the raw, sheer vocal talent in this band, in this artist. The way they can go from a song like blah blah blah, telling this narrative story and just going wild, to their Italian songs, the violently Italian songs, to songs like Time Zone or The Loneliest. It's just a lot of fun, and you feel, the album makes you feel like you're at a show. My synesthesia is just standing in front of a stage that's about waist height and there's a wedge right in front of you, and there are red and orange lights, and it's so hot in that venue that you have a sheen of sweat over you, honestly. But also the back door to the club is open and you get like a cool breeze, but you forgot your earplugs, and so the bass is just like boom, boom, boom. I love this album. It's great. Okay, we really need to speed it up. Ah! That was not good for my throat. Hotel Blue by Broadside. I wasn't sure what I was gonna think of this album, because I like Broadside's old stuff, but I was like, well, it's because I know they've had like a, and it's not because I'm like, oh, well, I like their new stuff because I'm a fan of their old. No, I just know that apparently they've had some lineup changes since their older stuff. Old Bones is one of my favorite albums of all time, and I know that they've had some lineup changes since then, so I was like, am I gonna vibe with the same style that they may have embodied in these new members, you know? But I did. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. It's a solid, fun, pop-punky, metalcore elements-esque album. I think if you like Broadside's old stuff, you'll probably like this album, because it's very fun, it's very catchy, but also will hit you right in your feels and take you right into the pit. Two of my favorite songs on that album are Cruel and Lucid. The next album is Jelly Roll's new album, Wits at Chapel. I love Jelly Roll, kind of a hometown hero around here, being in Middle Tennessee, you know, we're close. I'm just kidding, I don't know him, but I love him. I've been supporting him for a long while because even though I don't know him personally, I have a lot of friends in this area who do actually know him, who came up underground with him, doing a lot of shows and stuff with him. And so I've known about him for a long time, and it's just really cool to see him getting the recognition. I think he has been a long time coming. He's a really talented artist. I have heard from my friends and stuff that he's a really good dude. He's a really good guy. So all the props to him, because this album's really solid. Now this harkens back to what I was saying about not being able to relate to a lot of the stuff, because I guess I'm what you would call straight edge, personally, for myself. As long as you're not hurting anyone else, you do what you want to do. You do you, boo. I'm not gonna judge you for those choices, but me personally, I've had enough experience with that stuff with friends and family. I don't want it for myself, so I'm straight edge, and I personally feel like it's better that I am, because I have ADHD and an addictive personality, so you know. And a lot of this album centers around substance abuse and depression and self-doubt and poverty and just everything that rolls together in that, and battling that and struggling to overcome that. And I think it's extremely well done. It's something that I think anyone can relate to. It definitely has elements that everyone can relate to, I believe. Even if you're like me and straight edge and can't relate to being hungover in a church pew, you can relate to songs like Need a Favor, I think, because they are just so dredged in a lot of the same emotions we all have with the human experience. We just experience them in different ways, or different catalyst towards them, I guess. But it's really raw. It's very vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable album, and it's well done in its vulnerableness, but not turning it into victimhood. And on that note, my favorite song from this album, I think, is probably Need a Favor, but also Unlive. I love the song Unlive because it's talking about growing up around not so great influences, and seeing a lot and losing a lot of people to substance abuse and poverty, and no matter what you accomplish in life, you can't unlive that experience that you've had growing up that was very, very impactful to your upbringing and your outlook on the world. And as someone who has grown up in the boonies, in the rural, in the rural South, where the opioid epidemic and all kinds of other epidemics have taken hold, especially during my childhood and growing up and seeing all that, I totally feel that. I think even if you don't like country, I think you should check out this album. I think you should give it a listen, absolutely, just to be able to hear it. Hear its message, hear what it's got to say, because it has a lot of valuable insight and experience, and great job, Jelly Roll. Love it. Happy for you. I don't sound as enthusiastic as I want because I'm so sick, but I am. I'm very happy for you, local guy, local dude. Proud of you. I also found it funny because in the music match lyrics on Spotify, there's a lyric where they're like, when Jelly was making calls in Antioch, and I can tell that the lyrics didn't know what Antioch was because they cut off the word with just a dash, and I'm like, they said Antioch. It's like right a part of Nashville. You can call it its own city, it's just a part of Nashville. Kind of like how Georgetown's a part of DC, but it's not its own kind of entity, but it also kind of is. Anyway, I found that funny, because I'm like, y'all clearly couldn't translate Antioch. You were like, what did he just say? I don't know. He said anti-something, so we'll just put a dash. Alright, the albums that I've listened to since then, the 3 that I've listened to today, that Måneskin album was over an hour. So I'm taking it easy on myself today, especially my ears, because my ears are starting to get exhausted. So I am counting a singles release on here. I know I said I was going to try to minimize that. I think this is one of the first that I've done since this challenge, though. This is one of the first that's only had 2 songs on it, I think. And it's Now and Then by the Beatles. And another reason I'm counting this, I mean, I can, it's my challenge, I do what I want, but also they're releasing this on a vinyl record. So it goes to my point, it counts as a physical record, because these 2 songs are actually being released on a physical record. Now and Then by the Beatles. It's good. I mean, it's Beatles, so I like it. I wasn't super impressed with it, but also I think it's just because I've heard so much of the Beatles that nothing sounds that different. It just sounds like the Beatles. And I like the Beatles, I just don't think that anything new is gonna stun me. I found Now and Then to be really repetitive, and it started getting on my nerves. Overall, I liked it. I just thought it was really kind of repetitive. But then, Love Me Do was next. And I was like, no, you know what? That's a perfect song to pair with this. Because Love Me Do is one of the king of repetitious songs. So I was like, no, this makes sense. This checks out. Yeah, this checks out. That being said, it's good. It's fine. Ghost of LA by TX2. It's literally TX2, but I don't know if it stands for Texas 2. This is another album slash EP that I just saw in the recommended songs to add to the playlist, so I just went and added the entire thing. Another album where I can't really vibe with the subject matter, but that doesn't stop me from enjoying it. It's really intense. It's hard driving. I want to say altcore because I don't know if I would call it metalcore. It's definitely hard rock. But it also has a little bit of alt vibes to me. Has kind of the Palais Royale feel where they're able to blend those elements together, but also this feels like a breath of fresh air, new take on hard rock and roll in this genre, because while this EP may not embody what we think of typically as the rock and roll sound, it's more the rock and roll kind of lifestyle in the lyrics. The best example I think I could give you is Asking Alexandria's Reckless and Relentless album, which is one of my favorite albums of all time. Fun Chey fact. That album is very, very essential to young Chey's upbringing. I would say take the rock and roll lifestyle, intensity, subject matter of the lyrics of this album, and that's the same on this album. It's rock and roll lifestyle, you know, sex, drugs, rock and roll, not giving a frick what someone thinks. Doing your own thing, but also sometimes, a lot of times, paying the price, and the price isn't always so pretty, but here we are, we're living in it, we're doing our best, and you know what? A lot of times we're having a great time. But when the lows are lows, they're really lows. That kind of thing, but make the music more boppy. It's still very rock, it's still very crunchy and dark, and I'm getting Black Velvet over Pebbles synesthesia. I think that's what I originally wrote down. But take that and just make it boppy. So take some pebbles in a bag made of black velvet and just like shake it around in your hand. Excuse you. So Ghost of LA, the album by TX2, Tex2. Good. I recommend it. Not totally my thing, but I enjoyed it. It's certainly a vibe for a certain vibe. And I'm glad to see the tradition of up your life rock and roll style is continuing in rock in the new generation. I say as I'm a part of the new generation. I miss the vibes of Reckless and Relentless, but I hate that it destroys people's lives to actually write about that lifestyle because it comes from the experience of living it. Like, I love that album, but I know that it was so destructive to them, but I'm like, it's good songs! It's good! Like, Closure? Someone Somewhere? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me, dear insanity? Are you kidding me? But also, please don't make songs like that at, you know, harm to yourself or others. Like, I would rather have them be happy and healthy, making music that they love that is lifting them up, than destroy themselves for music that I may find a little bit better. I would rather them be happy and healthy and living their best lives. At least I have that album. I love that album. The drums on that album compared to the drums in the new album? Are you kidding me? James! I love James. James is an amazing drummer and they don't showcase him enough anymore. Hopefully, I mean, there are some songs on the new album that do just let him go at it, but I'm like, let my boy drum. James is an amazing drummer. Defend James squad. Sorry, that was... This is what happens when Chey only gets 3 hours of sleep. She goes on rants about James Cassell's and his drumming. He's also a very, very nice person. And I'm gonna say something right now because it just came to my mind. I'm a wounded wolf! If you know that, if you know, you know. If you know wounded wolf, you a real one. You may be entitled to financial compensation. If you don't know that, look it up. And the last album I've listened to so far today is Fill in the Blank by Fivefold. This was an album that was recommended to me on the homepage of my Spotify. It looked interesting, so I added it. Never heard of the band before, never heard of the album before, but wanted to check it out. Did not regret it. This is an even more big case of the latter half of the album doing a vibe switch to the beginning of it. Overall, this album's really great. If you're looking for a really solid rock album, recommend it. Has great breakdowns, great guitar parts, a lot of beautifully blended pieces coming together, I think. The vocal style is also really interesting, but I find it more interesting the way that it transitions into this vibe switch at the latter half of the album. The latter half of the album is definitely my favorite because it just has these songs that just like hit and hit and hit, but also make you wanna get in the pit. I think it's the last 5 songs of the album. It's House on a Hill, Hindsight, just those five in a row just made me sit in silence for a while. When the album ended, I was just sitting there like, what is my life? But yet I also felt encouraged to further take on my life, and I find a lot of albums are doing that lately, and I love it. I love to see it. You love to see life sucks, and sometimes we hate it, and sometimes we hate ourselves, but gosh darn it, we're gonna give it another go, and things are eventually gonna be okay. Love to see that vibe. Love to see it. This album has everything you would want in a poppy, rocky album, but I'd say it's definitely not poppy. It's more metal than pop, but it's not quite what a lot of people might think of metal either. It's rock. Let's just leave it at that. It's hard rock, metalcore. Let's leave it at that, because my brain is too tired to operate, but it's really good. I followed them on Spotify, and I'm gonna keep up with all their stuff. I'm gonna look into their backlog of stuff, because it was just a great time. Their songwriting, beautiful, lyricism, gorgeous. I think these guys deserve more love, so I recommend you check them out, because I'm gonna look more into their stuff as well. The other albums that I'm gonna listen to today, probably gonna check out an EP, just because my ears are so tired and they're ringing, and I'm gonna listen to the new Knuckle Puck album. That's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do. I also need to get a haircut, good lord. But I love my Vegeta shirt. My Bad Omens order is supposed to be in soon too. So, my hoodie and my Gold Reaper shirt already got here. They got here like last week, but my Blood Sign tee, my Concrete Tour tee, all that, they were like, you know what, we're gonna take an extra week. And I'm like, I ordered them right off the bat with each other, but you know what, it's fine. Good things come to those who wait, and I will wait as long as it takes to get those good things. I'll see you when I'm reviewing the next albums. If you've made it this far into the video, if I've decided to make this one long video, bless you. I don't know if you sneeze, but if you sneeze, double bless you, but bless you. Thank you. You rock. You a real one. You a real one. What's up? It has, again, been indeed a little bit since we last spoke, and I'm gonna cut my light strength down. Hold on. Beep. Boop. Beep. There we go. It has indeed been a little bit since we've last chatted, since I've last listened to a couple albums, but I have reasons. Not very good ones, but I do have reasons. I didn't update yesterday. I did listen to 5 albums yesterday. Where did I last leave off at? Oh yeah, I was taking a day off to get my sinuses and my ears better, and it worked. I was still sick kind of the day after, but I took a Dayquil because we came back down here to work on some stuff around the house, and I got a couple more albums in, and then yesterday I also got 5 albums in. I have not updated you since before I took that break though, even though I did have a little bit of B-roll, because I was gonna update yesterday, but spur of the moment I just ended up deciding to go to the We Came as Roman show at Brooklyn Bowl. It's a show that I had been debating on going to because it was like, oh, well, I have the funds. How badly do I want to go to the show? And I was like, no, I want to go. I want to go. Because it's a show, I like all the acts that are playing. A lot of them I have never seen before or only seen once. I want to go to a show. Gosh dang it. And do I really need any more incentive than that? Here's a little tip about Chey. If you ask her to go to a show, I'll go. I'll go. 99% chance I will go. Also, my cousin went with me, so that was kind of an incentive, because I was already decided on going, and I was like, hey, Sabrina, you want to go with me to a show last minute, 4 hours before? I was like, you want to go? And she said, yeah, what the hell, let's do it. So it was a lot of fun. We both had a great time. I taught her how to hardcore two-step while Body Snatcher was on. That was pretty fun. If you want some free entertainment in your life, teach someone who doesn't listen to hardcore music how to hardcore two-step. It will be one of the sweetest and yet funniest things that you will ever see, because it's so simple that a lot of people just can't grasp it at first because it's too simple. But then when they do, they have so much fun with it. It's great. It's great. But you're not here for that. You're here to talk about the album. So, let's talk about what I've listened to since we last spoke. I have listened to I am currently on 130 albums out of 300. and we're almost at Thanksgiving. Will I be able to do this? Yes, because I am determined. Since we've last spoke, I have listened to Need You Now by Lady Antebellum, now going by Lady A, but at the time they were Lady Antebellum. Diabolus and Musica by Slayer, and I don't care if I mispronounce that. Sorry, not sorry. Losing What We Love, the new album by Knucklepuck. Take Me Out of Here, an EP by Senses. The Lost and the Longing, which is an EP with Alpha Wolf and Holding Absence. Brand New Me, an album by Concrete Castles. Bad Ideas, an EP by Haunter. Welcome to Phantom Land, an album by Sink In. The Beauty and Tragedy, an EP by Awaken I Am. More Like a Crash, which is an EP by Mayday Parade. I'm Hard to Love But So Are You, Volume 4, the EP by Too Close to Touch. Alright, so I'm gonna keep making these quick because what I think I'm gonna be leaning towards is releasing these videos in kind of a series instead of one big long journey-esque thing. I also realized that in my starting of the series there's one category of albums that I forgot to mention. So I talk about a lot of the albums are new to me, or they're just ones that I've heard songs from, or I know by the artist, but I haven't listened to the full album. There's another category. That category is albums that I have heard, but I haven't really listened to. Like Need You Now by Lady A, that is an album that I have physically owned. It's one of the CDs that I was checking to see if it was still in good shape. That's an album I've owned since shortly after it came out, like 2010. I've owned it for a long time. I've heard it a lot just from playing it, but I've never really sat and listened to it. And that's the case for a lot of albums in my life, for a lot of artists, because I grew up in a household that was constantly full of music, constantly playing music. But if I ask myself, what songs do I remember from certain albums, or what things stand out to me? I can't name them. So while I listened to the albums by a lot of these artists that I've heard maybe like dozens, maybe even hundreds of times, there are some that I never listened to. Like, I never actually focused while I was listening to them. I was just vibing, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just curious now, you know, to like listen closely. And I feel like think critically is too strong of a term, but just pay more attention and see what stands out to me, what things I like, what things I maybe don't like. I'm curious. That is the case for Need You Now by Lady A. What is to say about it? I like it. It's a good sign of the times country album. By sign of the times, I mean it's very 2010, 2012 country, very pop-esque. Even if you don't like country, I think it's very listenable. You probably know the title track, Need You Now. It was a major pop hit, I think, for a while. I think it has a lot of views and stuff on YouTube. I think it was pretty popular when it came out. Like, not just on the country charts. Like, I think it was do they still call it a crossover hit then? It was a big hit. I would tell you the entire album is like that. It's nothing that really stands out to me in a way that's like mind-blowing or it's an amazing work of art. But I don't think an album has to do that to be a good album. I think it's good. It's not something that I would choose to listen to often. It's, again, something that I feel like I have to be in a certain mood to listen to, but also I wouldn't mind having it on in the background, because it's not mindless, but it's very... I mean, it has its more feelsy moments, it has sadder, more emotional moments, but overall it's very upbeat, very fun, kind of getting ready to go on a night out with your friends kind of vibe. And that is something that I like a lot in albums. I like to feel upbeat in my music, but a lot of my happy music is what other people would consider angry music. I was actually just talking to my boyfriend about this. I was like, I want you to realize this is who you're dating because this is the song that I listen to when I'm happy, and I sent him Rotten Pieces by Alpha Wolf. And I was like, listen to that and just consider your choice. Consider your choice in me. I'm still so upset I didn't go see them with Motionless in White when they were in Nashville. I am upset at myself. I wouldn't say it's as bland or as mindless as a lot of people might consider, like, supermarket music. Like, it's not, like, that kind of upbeat. It is, like, pay attention, have fun, dance around your room kind of music. And I like that. It's fun. It's good. It's clean. It's just good, clean fun. Alright, the Slayer album. This is a case where it's an album that I listened to growing up, but just didn't really pay attention to it. And it's a CD that I had, and I was checking the condition of it. It's good. Nothing really stood out to me. I think it's just a good, decent, solid metal album. I think you could play this for just about any maybe entry-level metal fan and they might like it, which is not an insult to it. I'm not saying, oh, only newbies to the metal scene could like this album. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I feel like a lot of people might be intimidated by Slayer, but if you wanted to introduce someone new to the metal scene, maybe to Slayer, let them hear this album, because I think a lot of people hear their name and, like, see their iconography, and they're like, oh, it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be so hard, and they think of Raining Blood and stuff. I think playing them this album, they'll be like, wait, that's what Slayer is? Yeah, like, I could get into Slayer, you know? I think it's, like, a good entry for someone who may be a little bit intimidated by Slayer, because they might be intimidated by the cover of their most well-known albums and be like, oh, I don't know if I could listen to that. And it's like, surprise! This is what they sound like. Don't be scared. So that's all positive. That is coming as a positive way to say that. I like it. I like it. I had it playing in the background while I was cleaning up my books, as you saw in that B-roll, so to me, that's chill. To me, it was chill Slayer. Chill Slayer time. I think my favorite tracks off of it were the first 3. Yeah. They were probably the most ones that, like, got me hype and got me going. I cleaned that entire room in, like, 10 minutes. Take Me Out of Here by Senses. This is an EP that I discovered just from a song being recommended to me on Spotify, and it was attached to an EP, and so I just added the whole darn thing and checked it out. It's good. I've never heard of this group before, but they're really good. I liked it. All pop, rocky, very easy on the ears, very easy to get into, but also can find yourself, like, jamming out to really easily. Like, I was just casually listening to it, and then I just, like, found myself totally vibing, and I was like, wait a minute, how did this happen? I mean, not that I'm surprised, because it's clearly good, and I'm enjoying it, but, like, when did I start moving, you know? If you need a good mind blank out, let someone else do the talking for you kind of moment, or you want some jams on a nice sunny day drive, I think this EP is for you. Check it out, it's pretty good. The Lost and the Longing with Alpha Wolf and Holding Absence. I'm gonna love pretty much anything Alpha Wolf does. I don't know if you can tell by the way I've mentioned them probably 4 or 5 times already, but I love this. I didn't realize that Alpha Wolf was on this because I originally just added a song by Holding Absence, and I was like, well, let me check and see, like, if this is part of an EP, because it was a single, and I was like, okay, well, maybe it's come out as part of an EP, and then I saw that Alpha Wolf was on the EP with them, and I was like, add, immediately. This EP has a really good blend of the hardcore, metalcore, and just hard rock, pop punk elements. It blends together really well. I think it's balanced out really well between the tracks. So if you're not into hardcore, but you're still into kind of pop, punky, alt, I still think that you would find stuff you really, really like about this EP. And likewise, if you're just more into the Alpha Wolf kind of stuff, I think you will still find stuff that you like on this EP. It's very well done, very well blended. I like it a lot. I think my favorite might be Hotel Underground, because Alpha Wolf is just coming with the rawest lyrics that I have captured in the past month, actually paying attention to lyrics. It must be so easy slithering without a spine. I was like, huh? Oh, okay. Also, 60 Centimeters of Steel, just, oh, bruh. Brand New Me, an album by Concrete Castles. They had a couple of songs recommended to me over different playlists, and I realized that it had the same album cover, and so I said, let's just add the whole freaking thing into my stuff I want to listen to. And I'm glad I did. They're really good. I started following them. I hope they come to Nashville soon, because I would really like to see them. A very clean, crisp, just all-together great rock band. They have a lot of songs that I think would be easier on the ears of people who are not into the heavier side of rock, that kind of lean more towards the alt-rock poppy sound. And then they have elements that lean towards that harder side, so kind of like the Holding Absence Alpha Wolf. They blend those elements together really, really well in a way that songs are both catchy and original. We all know the topics of love that get rehashed in songs. Unrequited love, breakup acts, leaving your hometown, leaving people behind, making something of yourself, you hate my hometown. But they present a lot of these topics, and different ones, in a way that feels like their own original voice. It's not just the same things that have been rehashed in songs over and over and over. And that seems like a simple thing to be able to do because it's someone's work, it's speaking in their own voice, but You'd be surprised, especially when you're listening to 300 albums in 50 days, how many songs you hear about the same thing, and how a lot of them can blend together sometimes. So, whenever your ears get exhausted, and yes, to my non-musician friends, to my non-engineer pals out there, my non-production people, your ears can get exhausted. You can get ear fatigue. When that starts happening, it becomes a lot harder to notice, too, when someone's voice or someone's lyrics and someone's storytelling is original. But it was so noticeable, even during some ear fatigue for me, that it came through. And I really liked it. I will say I like their songs, which I will list here because I want to get through this, and I don't know them off the top of my head, but I will list them down here. I like the songs that have the more distortion elements in them that lean towards that harder rock vibe, but they're really talented. I really, really love the vocalist vocal style. I love her voice. It's so pleasing to listen to. She can sing so well. But they're all clearly very talented, and I will be checking out their new stuff from here on out. Bad Ideas, an EP by Haunter. This was an EP that got randomly recommended to me on Spotify, and clearly Spotify was having its Let's Play Game days, because this EP is not really anything like I listen to at all. It leans more towards the dance electronic side of music, and that's not really my thing. It's not really my vibe. That being said, I do sometimes listen to that stuff, but I have to be in my certain kind of mindless, let's have fun, party, upbeat, happy mood. And luckily, I was in that mood while listening to this, because otherwise I just would have been like, okay, this is good, but when is it over? I was not this way with this, though, because I was in the perfect mood that I needed to be to hear this. So it was good. It kept me moving and grooving while I was doing my chores, while I was making myself breakfast. I think that's when I started listening to it, I made breakfast, and then it was just so upbeat and kept me moving so much that I just started doing chores and having a good time. I wasn't doing chores because I was bored, I was just having that much of a good time. So I would say if you do like the more dancey electronic kind of vibe scene, check them out, but it's not really my thing, but I can appreciate it. It's good. I'm glad I listened to it anyway, because I need party music too. I party. Whenever I said that, I just thought of the song She Likes to Party by Thank You Scientist, which is the most whiplash song I have ever heard in my life. If you want whiplash personified in a song, it's She Likes to Party by Thank You Scientist. Like, even thinking about it, my head just feels like I am spinning. Every time I listen to it, I've heard it so many times, and every time I listen to it, it just, like, wrenches me back and forth. It just grabs me in a stranglehold, and it's just like, it's... If you know the song, you know what I'm talking about. I've sent it to some of my engineering instructors and been like, you need to play this for students, to be like, there are no rules in music. There are no rules. There are guidelines, and there are rules in the studio, and there are some rules in mixing, especially, you know, with technology and safety, but when it comes to stylistic choices, really there are no rules, and you could have a real good time with it. But we're getting off track. Welcome to Phantom Land by Sink In, another case where Spotify recommended me this album. I've never heard of this artist before, but the cover art of this album was super pretty, and the album title, Welcome to Phantom Land, intrigued me, so I added it, and I really enjoyed it. It's a really good, solid rock album, and I like that they have these interspersed bits in there. Like, there's one before the song Drive, where it's talking about, it sounds like you're on a ride, and they're like, don't touch the creatures, keep your arms inside the vehicle at all times. These creatures are from your own imagination. That's right, we're projecting all of your inner psychosis mechanisms. And that's really cool. It doesn't take much to make little things super cool like that. You know? And I like little tidbits, I like bits in albums, in any kind of art like that, because it's just the artist's own unique little fingerprint on it. And it fits the theme of the album. Like, I would have been a little bit disappointed if I looked at this theme park-esque album and the cover art and they didn't have something like that. I would have been vaguely a little bit disappointed. But the fact that they included just a few things like that interspersed throughout this just really solid, catchy rock album was really cool. I liked it a lot. The Beauty and Tragedy, an EP by Awaken I Am. Another really solid rock EP that I won't talk about much because it will get me emotional. A lot of it was done in the memory of their guitarist, I believe, who was unfortunately passed away due to an intentionally reckless driver, which is terrible. And two of the songs, I believe, on the EP were recorded when he was still here, and the rest were done in his honor, like dedicated in his honor, in his memory in the band. And so a lot of the songs surround grief and passing and dealing with tragedy. Obviously, the beauty in tragedy is the name of the EP. And as someone who has had to deal with a lot of tragedy this year, a lot of personal grief, it hit home, but in a way that was kind of cathartic, because it's like, okay, yeah, it's the beautiful thing about music where you're like, these feelings that sometimes make you feel isolated, someone else is vocalizing them, and even though logically, like, you know you're not alone, you maybe haven't heard someone vocalize feelings like that, like what's going on inside your head, and so when someone does, you're like, oh, you know, you feel even more validated, you feel even more seen. I think that was the case here. So if you're struggling with anything like that, or have in the past, I highly recommend this EP to you. It was very cathartic, very validating to be seen, especially the last song, The Stages of Grief. Oh my gosh, I cried. Not to mention, it's just a really, really solid, well done EP. And I will be looking into more by them, because it was just so well done. More Like a Crash, the 3 songs from Mayday Parade. I mean, it's Mayday Parade. To me, they can do no wrong. What? I get in the pit for Alpha Wolf, and then I cry like a little for Mayday Parade, okay? Shut up. I love Mayday Parade, I always have. They're a fixture of my little emo heart, my little pop-punk emo heart from the good 2009 to 2014 heyday of tiny emo Chey. I will say the last song, Miracle, did that kind of repetition thing that I was just like, okay. But overall, I really like the songs. They're really good, just classic Mayday Parade vibes with an updated sound. I know a lot of people were talking about Mayday Parade, like, it's just gonna sound like the stuff they rehashed from, like, it's just gonna sound like nostalgia bait, but I don't think that's the case here. I think they actually, like, use their essence, use what a lot of people love about them, and they're able to keep it current and fresh. God, I can't remember the name of the second song, but the second song was my favorite. What was it? Got Me All Wrong. That's the name of it. I really like that song. That is quintessential pop punk that little emo Chey kind of loved, and I still love. Though I will say, in More Like a Crash, I like getting to hear kind of I saw someone said online, it's like a grittier side of Derek's vocals, and I think they totally nailed it. I really like that. I really liked getting to hear that come out of his vocals when we're used to just hearing, you know, the oh well, his really smooth, kind of lovelorn, angsty vocals that he's well known and well loved for. So this was cool to see something different, like I said, updated. Really enjoyed it. You should check it out if you're a Mayday Parade fan, or even if you're not, you should check it out. And the last one is the EP by Too Close to Touch. Too Close to Touch is an artist that I have listened to for a very long time. Like I said, been an emo since before 2009. And into metalcore probably around the same time, because I've been raised on metal my whole life and just slowly found my own metalcore belonging. But this is a case where it's an album or an EP that I've heard a lot, and I just wanted to go back and check it out and actually take time to sit down and listen and focus on it. And I love it. I love it as much as I remember loving it the first time hearing it. Just absolutely in touch, in tune with human emotion and how we all affect each other, and how our affecting each other can affect ourselves, and how that can be a terrible spiral, but also there's a kind of beauty in the way that we can clearly affect each other so much, and there is beauty in life. Alright, that's the update. For the albums that I'm listening to today, I'm actually listening to the Haven't Been Myself album by Too Close to Touch, because same thing, just an album that I haven't listened to in a long time, and I haven't listened to, and I'm about halfway through it, really enjoying it, but I'll update you later on that. And the other one that I know I'm listening to is I'm finishing the Dark Bloom album from We Came as Romans, because even though I went to their show last night, I haven't finished listening to the album. I've heard a couple songs from it, but this music, I'm getting all scattered around. This year has just been so insane for new music that there's a lot of releases I'm behind on, and this was the case for this one. I had heard a couple songs, and of course, on the way there, my cousin was like, can you show me some music from the people we're going to see? Because she had not heard of any of them. So we listened to about half of the album, and now I gotta finish listening to the other half. But I think I've heard a few of the latter tracks. But still, I'm actually going to go through and sit and focus and do some critical listening on the album instead of just hearing it. Besides that, I don't really know. I guess we'll just see where the day takes us. I have a lot to do. Good luck, Chey. Good luck, Charlie. Good luck, Chey. See ya. So I'm here with an update on the 5 albums that I have listened to since we last talked, and I also don't think that I got to talk about Knuckle Puck. I think I forgot to talk about them. It was a great album, by the way. I recently just got into Knuckle Puck, like, in these past few years, like a couple years ago. They kind of, like, blazed by me until a couple years ago, and then I got into them because I didn't really get into pop punk until a few years ago, like 6 years ago maybe. I was mainly just in like the metalcore scene, like the harder aspects of it. So I'm kind of a latecomer to this game, but I still really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the album. It's a very October vibes album, which is good because it has a song called October on it, which all the songs are bangers, but very October vibes. By that, I mean it's chilly, but not in a mean or cold way. It's just kind of in that aloof, angsty way, but it's that Knuckle Puck charm and hardness they can kind of go for that kind of makes you feel like you're in a small show about to jump in a pit. Not like you're gonna get your nose broke, but you're still gonna jump in a pit. And everyone around you is probably wearing like flannel with like denim vest over it maybe, or just the flannel with the beanies. You know what I'm talking about. There's this one picture of very early Knocked Loose that's in my head that I'm thinking about, but it's not quite that hard. Like, they have the hardcore aspect in that photo. Like, that photo really, that photo, I'll post it here, that is my hardcore Roman Empire. Am I using that meme right? Probably not. I'm 80 years old. Last year, RSD, the T-Swift album that was pressed, was actually an EDM techno album. What? That's crazy. That's wild. The 5 albums that I have since listened to, oh, do you see Lucifer over here? He's chilling, don't worry about him. I could get up and put you in my ring light, but, you know, I figured this gives some variety to the video, gives a little bit of panache. So the 5 albums that I have listened to since I last talked to you, Haven't Been Myself from Too Close to Touch, Out With a Bang by David Lee Murphy, Dark Bloom, We Came as Romans, Austin, Post Malone, and Here You Come Again, Dolly Parton. Yes, I do quite whiplash myself when it comes to these albums. I don't know how I ended up choosing so many albums within listening of each other that touch on grief and loss and death, but I want to stop it right now because, frankly, I've had enough of it. I've had enough of it this year. I'm done with it. So I'm not going to talk too much about the Too Close to Touch album because it's, like I said, an album that I've heard before, but just went back to critically listen to it, and wow. Yeah, it still rips my heart out, especially the last track, which I'm not gonna get too much into because I said I don't want to talk about these subjects too much, but that album is absolutely beautiful, absolutely will rip your heart out, turn it around, upside down, but in a very human way, not in a butchering way, just in like a, holy crap, it can really hurt to be human. Out With a Bang, David Lee Murphy, just a really good classic 90s country album. If you're familiar with country music, more than likely you know his song Dust on the Bottle, very famous song, very big song. This is the album that song is from, and I would just say the rest of the album is pretty good. Country music, I think, at least in my opinion, in my experience, which take that with a grain of salt, as you should, because no one is an expert. I think country music was kind of ahead of the curve in terms of the singles culture that we're seeing today, in terms of artists releasing singles more than they are albums, or at least more than they used to release albums. Like, a lot of artists are just kind of like releasing singles or like 3-song EPs and stuff on Spotify a lot more than full-length albums, or we're seeing a lot of singles that never wind up on albums, they're just singles on Spotify. I think country music was kind of ahead of the curve on that, because I have rarely heard a cohesive country album. Rarely. And maybe that's just because a lot of the country albums that I've listened to haven't been centered around, like, certain themes or in a certain order, but it's like a lot of the tracks are just singles put together on an album. Like, none of them have any real cohesion or anything in common except for some themes. Like, it doesn't sound like they were all conceptualized and brought together in sessions together, like, in the studio, compared to a lot more rock albums that I've heard. Now, I know that's not the case with every country album, but I'm just saying for the majority that I have heard and listened to, and I think that's the case for this album. Like, it's every song you hear could have been released on its own. It would make sense without the other ones. Now I'm digging myself too deep a hole, but I think you get my point. Let me put it this way. So a lot of the albums in the rock sphere, in my opinion, are released with a track listing ordered that way for a reason, because they make sense in that order. There's a certain method to the madness in the way that they're ordered. They have something in common, or the transitions are nice, or they flow really well, or there's a certain kind of overarching story or overarching theme or feel to the album that we're going through. Country music, I've rarely found an album like that. It just feels like all the songs were just kind of like, okay, this one, okay, that one, okay, this one, okay, that one. Which is fine. I mean, they can all still be good songs. Like, on this album, they're all good songs. They're all just good, quintessential 90s sounding country songs, which are fun and great, but it's just an interesting thing that I noticed. My favorite song... Ugh. Okay, Spotify's not gonna let me search. I have to scroll all the way down on this motherfucker. So, I would say my favorite song on the David Lee Murphy album, I would say my favorite song on the David Lee Murphy album is the Why Can't People Just Get Along, where his mom goes into a bar after he gets in a fight and just absolutely bodies people. 10 out of 10 representation of good country music storytelling. Love it. Obsessed with it. Also, David Lee Murphy's voice is just so nice, so pleasant to listen to. Alright, Dark Bloom, Came as Romans. I don't know what to say besides it's just a really great We Came as Romans album. If you're a We Came as Romans fan, I don't think that you will be disappointed by this album whatsoever. It's heavy, it's catchy, it's crunchy, it's stank face, the good stank face. If you're into metal, you know that's a good thing. But there are a lot of sad themes on this album for obvious reasons, which I won't get into, but hit me in the heart, especially Holding the Embers and Promise You hit real hard, hit a little bit too hard, but in a way that was also kind of cathartic and nice and validating. And I think We Came as Romans has a special talent that they have always shown and continue to show that they still are able to harness, which is capturing unique experiences and overarching human emotions that we all feel but can't always vocalize. That's kind of the essence of songwriting in general, but that it's a lot easier said than done. And I think they're able to take some of the darkest unique experiences and darkest human emotions that can be felt and translate them in a way that is still very digestible and catchy. Even it doesn't always have to be dark. It's showing a lot of, you may be having these dark feelings, but there can be light, at the end of the tunnel. There can be a way to keep going, and you should. So awesome, love it. Austin, Post Malone, it was good. I'm not a huge rap hip-hop connoisseur, pop connoisseur, so I don't really know how to talk about albums like this, but do I really know how to talk about music anyway? No, I'm just on here talking to a camera, sitting in my room on my iPhone 7. I liked it. It was fine. It was good. I will say, I love the acoustic guitar sounds on this album. Beautifully done. Anything with an acoustic guitar on this album sounds absolutely beautifully recorded. It is vibrant, but it is not too warm, it's not too crystally, it's not too brittle. It captures the essence of a really, really pretty acoustic guitar, which I think blends with some of the tones of this album, because this album has an interesting tone where it has this lightness to it, but this underlying pain, but smiling through it, like that song
gosh, what is it? Laugh It Off. Laugh It Off, the last song. I think that song is the perfect way to end this album because it fully captures the essence, the feelings, the vibes of the overall tone that we're getting throughout these songs on this album to wind up here. Because like I said, it's this kind of lightness, but then underneath like this pain, but also kind of like, well, what can you do? You remember when his plane had trouble grounding and people were worried, and then there was this tweet being like, why are y'all freaking out? He up there napping, he's gonna get off the plane with a Bud Light in one hand and a cigarette in the other. That sort of, what can you do vibe, but also, are the vibes being given on this album. My favorite songs were probably Morning, Speedometer, and Hold My Breath. Hold My Breath was the one I think that was when I noticed the super, super pretty guitar. But also Speedometer is just pretty funny. I laughed at the part where he goes, uh-oh. So goofy, so good. Just little moments like that can really make a song just stand out, and I love that. I also just love Post as a human being that exists. I'm glad that you're here in this space at the same time as me on this earth. You know, he's pretty cool. Oh, Green Thumb was also very clever. I thought that some of the lines in Morning were clever, but Green Thumb, that whole theme of that song, so beautiful, but also so sad and well done. The way that this little seed of an idea, pun not really intended, is able to expand over the story, becomes expansive, all expenses paid. I need to go back to sleep. The way that this little seed of a story starts off and becomes so expansive and then perfectly sums up at the end in a way that you don't really expect, I feel like does a great job of taking the listener on this ride that we didn't really expect to go on, and we're kind of like, huh, it's a little bit relatable at the beginning, and then it's kind of like, oh, well. And I feel like you can find yourself relating more than you thought you might expect to be able to be. That was English, Chey. And at the end, you find yourself being able to relate more than you thought you could. So good job, Posty. And finally, Dolly Parton's Here You Come Again. I mean, Dolly can do no wrong. It's Dolly freaking Parton. You know, she can do no wrong. I don't really have any comments on this album, except it's very, very much a sign of its recording times. It sounds like the 70s, which it was recorded in 1977, so that makes sense. But it sounds disco-y. It has that overall entire shimmer to the tracks. It's very, very glittery, very sequiny. And that's not a bad thing, because I think that they're able to maintain it enough that it's just a shimmer over the tracks. It's not super bombastic or just attention grabbing. And I think it's done right. I think if you want that quintessential 70s kind of sound without being overbearing on your tracks, I think this album is a good example of how to do it in a balanced way that also literally came from that time. So, engineers, take note from Dolly frickin' Parton, of course. I do have a comment, though. The song Me and Little Andy. You know how people have that conspiracy theory about Harry Styles and Taylor Swift and like the hit and run and stuff? Me and Little Andy has me asking some questions. I don't want to say too much more than that. So I texted my cousin and I was like, so the characters in this story weren't in great shape, but they were alive. And then all of a sudden Dolly's like, nope, they're dead right after they came into her house. I just have questions. And that's all I want to say about that, as the narrator. I have questions about the narration of that song and the outcome of the story. But maybe that's just my true crime mind getting in the gutter. So I really love the song Cowgirl and the Dandy. Nothing about it super captured me audio-wise, but lyrically, wow. What a great exercise in the minimum being able to make an impact. There's a saying in writing where to get the biggest impact, write about the smallest thing. So if you want to write about the devastating effects of war, like the horrors of war, you don't write about, the battles or the ravaged towns. You zoom in on the super tiny details, and you don't write about those big overarching things. You write about the burned up, bloody child's toy on the cobblestone streets. And that is a much harsher, nightmarish example of what's going on here, but it gets to the point of what I'm saying, that tiny details or tiny moments that seem, in the grand scheme of things, can still have such a big impact or showcase more than what they originally seem. I really like it. Cowgirl and the Dandy. You should check it out. It's beautiful lyrics. Another thing I would say about this album is 80% of the songs had twists in them at the end. Like, you'd start with this plot, and then by the end, it was like everything has changed, or a massive thing in the plot has changed. So I thought that was pretty cool. It's just a little detail to mention. But also, Dolly can do no wrong. Her voice is beautiful on this album. Duh. Dolliness is next to godliness here in the great state of Tennessee. A last thing I will mention is I want to talk about the drums on track 6, which is Lovin' You. That shimmeriness that I was talking about earlier, I don't know how they did it, and now I'm going to be asking my engineering professors, like, if they knew who worked on this album, because I have questions, but they were able to apply that shimmeriness to the drum tracks in a way that almost makes it sound like, what is my synesthesia? What did I think? What did I hear? Or what did I see whenever I heard it? It was almost kind of like the reflection on crystal glassware, seeing through the lens of the kind of glare of a 70s magazine ad. That was the synesthesia I was getting from the sound of the drums. It was light enough to notice they were there, but able to take a step back and not be noticed until you were supposed to notice them, and they added just the perfect amount of flavor. I realize the more I talk about my synesthesia, the more I'm gonna seem like a crazy person. I've chosen the life I've chosen. Hi, I'm Chey. Jesus lives in my window. Now that we're all caught up on those, I will talk to you a little bit about some of the albums that I've already listened to today. Have I listened to 5 already today, or am I on the 5th one? I think I'm on the 5th one. I've already listened to 4, I think. One of those is High Low by Not a Surf, which is apparently a big 90s cult band that I had no idea about. I just saw them a song recommended on Spotify's thrifting playlist, added them, and I do want to go ahead and talk about this album because, well, I'm just going to get started on this rant, but what the is up with that drumming on that album? And I mean that in the best way. What the hell? I was listening to it on the drive up here this morning, and I was like, the drums are so tight, so crisp. Just as an engineer, I'm like, that is my dream. Those are beautiful drums. And that is a lot to be said about the talent of the drummer, too. Whoever the drummer was on that album, the drummer of the band, what's it like to be talented? Like, the drumming is so freaking good, man. It is so tight. It is so compact. My synesthesia that I got for the overall album was California, but make it November vibes. And actually, on the way over here, I was thinking about it because I was listening to it while I was thinking about it, obviously. And my synesthesia that I got gave me a very, very specific image. And I was like, I sure hope that I can find this when I get down to the house. And I was able to. I spent about 5 minutes out in my yard searching for the perfect thing. But this is the synesthesia that the album gives me. Imagine this is, like, wet. Like, it has rain on it. It's obviously dried since I brought it in the house. But this kind of waxy brown fall leaf that's sort of brittle. And just imagine it wet with rain. Because the album is that kind of brittle. It has this tightness that is so tight it feels like it's on the edge of being brittle, but not brittle as in it would break off in pieces. Like, if it gets any tighter, it could just snap. But also there's moments where it kind of gives and where it takes. And I believe that's the waxy sort of texture, if I had to describe it like that, that I'm getting. It has its smoother moments and the way that it flows and it all comes together, but it's still in this tight, angsty, youthful frustration kind of form, and the rain on it I'm getting just from the overall smoothness of it, because it's not a very jagged sound. It's a very kind of rounded, captured, again, tight sound, but especially the drums, just the bap, bap, bap. Like, you hear the noise on this leaf, like, when you tap it. Right? It's, you know, it stops. There's no reverb on this leaf. There's no delay. There's no sustain on a leaf. I don't know if you know this. There's no sustain on a leaf. This is just documenting my slow descent into fucking insanity, isn't it? This album is gonna drive me insane. There's no sustain on a leaf. What the hell, Chey? Because the drums are that present. They're so captured, but they're not stifled. They're not suffocated. They are just bam, bam, in your face. Psychic caramel, shut up. Shut up. Just shut up. It was Treehouse and Psychic caramel, whatever. Treehouse is where I first started really noticing it, and I was like, whoa, excuse me? Excuse me? What is up with that drum sound? And then Psychic Caramel, apparently Popular is the song from this album that really launched it into kind of cult status. Psychic Caramel is slept on. The drums! Ah! The way that it starts out with that tempo and then it just builds up, it's very punk rock in a way, but it's also, it maintains its melodic rock status or the vibes because it knows when to take and when to just do this, and it knows when to let the water roll off. It knows when to give. But yet it's still all together, and it just the right amount of pressure can just make it, you know? But there's still some flexibility there. Holding on. God help me. I'm not even gonna worry about talking about the next few right now. We'll catch up later. I think I need to do some introspection.